Hey, what is going on, everybody? Welcome to Upkick MMA, episode 224. I am Brendan. UFC Fight Night, Jessica Andrade versus Erin BlanchField. We're going to cover the main card here. We're going to break down all of the fights. If you're looking for a specific breakdown, the timestamps are down below. Before we get started, real quick, if you like MMA, you like podcasts about MMA, you like fight breakdowns, I do all that stuff here, 2 or 3 videos every single week covering the UFC, PFL, Bellator, ONE FC, bunch of different organizations. If you like that, subscribe so you know when the next video is coming out. All right, let's get into it. UFC Fight Night. Andrade versus BlanchField. So, man, this is not to take away from BlanchField. I thought she looked much better than Andrade. Okay, let's just put it that way. She ends up getting the win here in the second round. Like I said, this is not to take away from BlanchField, but Andrade just does not look the same anymore. I don't know if it's because she's off the sauce now. I don't know if it's just age is catching up with her. I don't know if it's the weight cutting. I don't know if it's the lack of weight cutting, dieting, lack of focus. There's a whole myriad of reasons that could be causing the decline. But or maybe she just had an off night. But Andrade did not look the same. So leg kicks from Jessica early, and Erin just had this really good jab going. The hooks from Andrade, as usual, where they were going to work really well because Erin wasn't moving her head off the center line. Then later on, she kind of started moving, but really she just started backing up and avoiding getting out of range. I think the fact that her reach, she utilized her reach pretty well against Andrade, but the biggest thing was just keeping her head out of the reach of Andrade. And I don't know if that sounds like, oh, well, no shit. I understand that, but really, that distance management is what allowed her to stay in there as long as she did. She did take a couple big shots from Andrade, nothing world-ending. Obviously, she was still in there, but she failed on a couple double legs. Her long striking was just keeping the distance and keeping it landed. She ended up outstriking her 44-40 in this first round. I gave the damage to BlanchField, but only just. I thought it was pretty close. BlanchField landed a great right hand that partially buckled Andrade for a second. I think that's what really made the difference for me. There were a couple big shots that Andrade did land. What is going on, man? I was fine like 2 seconds ago, and all of a sudden, my throat's backing up. That's weird. I lean towards BlanchField, but just not by much, right? The judges' scorecards, they had it. Not that it matters, but the judges' scorecards, 2 of them had it for BlanchField, 1 of them had it for Andrade. And then Andrade got kind of sloppy swinging away, and BlanchField finally got a trip and a takedown and worked her way to the back and got the rear naked choke. What a great finish. Fantastic for her. She was actually outstruck in the second round, but it did not matter. It matters not. And she ends up getting the finish. Great win for her. If we check out the rankings, there's not much standing in the way of her and a title shot at this point. And I know you're saying, but come on, man. She's ranked number 10 and she just beat number 3. Fine. But really, what happened here? She showed that she can handle Jessica Andrade, who was kind of the boogie woman in this division. Actually, in both the 115 and 125 divisions. I think Caitlin Chukagian is probably a good matchup for her. I think Alexa Grasso would be fun. Lauren Murphy is stupid. Not her. She's not stupid. I think that matchup is stupid. Araujo could be fun. Jennifer Maia is dumb. These women are just way too far out of it because BlanchField beating number 3 puts her in a position to get a title shot. Manon, maybe Talia Santos. Here's the thing. Who's getting the next title shot? You got to be excited. And with the way that BlanchField just beat her, I think her versus Shevchenko makes the most sense going forward. Just because, she's hot right now. She's so hot right now. She just is. She's hot right now. I think now's the time just to cash in on her name. right? Beating Andrade, unless she goes out there and just starches somebody or finishes someone in like the first 5 seconds, is that going to make a big difference? I don't think so. So I think now's the time, as soon as possible, getting her in there versus Shevchenko. I think, if this goes a couple of years from now, I think if Shevchenko has a decline, we could be looking at a competitive fight. But as it stands right now, I think Shevchenko still gets the easy win. I don't know. I think the only way Shevchenko loses is by her not caring. All right, moving on here. Zach Pauga versus Jordan Wright. Pauga getting the... God dang it. The fact that Jordan Wright has the nickname the Beverly Hills Ninja cracks me up. I love that movie. This fight was not the most interesting one to watch, put it that way. But Pauga he had just had an effective strategy. So Pauga pushed him against the cage in in the clinch. He was landing some decent elbows. He landed some good knees against the cage. This is Pauga did that for all 3 rounds. Okay, we just put it that way. I don't think there was many moments. The 3rd round was probably the most competitive, but the first 2 rounds were just Pauga pushing him against the fence. Look at the striking numbers: 22-5 in the first round, 15-7 in the second round, and in the 3rd round it was closer, 22-17 in favor of Pauga, but that's because it was contested in the middle of the octagon for a little bit. Man, I don't know what is going on. And now my headphone's going out too. Fantastic. Technical problems. Gotta love it. There we go. Okay. Now, nope. Maybe. Whatever. Anyway, there wasn't much to talk about in this fight. I don't think there was a ton of things other than saying maybe Jordan Wright needs to work on his, what would you call that, octagon generalship, because they call it ring generalship. I don't think there was much to pull away from this fight. It's probably a skipper. I would skip that one. If you didn't watch this, you don't need to. There's not much to get from it. Just moving on. See, the thing is, like, there wasn't much to break down because Zach just pushed him against the cage. He didn't want to hang out in the middle. He didn't want to hang out. He didn't want to strike. All he did was control the pace, control the position, and do damage. It was effective, right? Not the most fun to watch, like I said, but extremely effective. And I'm not going to fault a guy because he wants to get a win. It's not like he didn't do anything. He did. He controlled him against the cage, was throwing knees, throwing elbows, throwing punches, and he got the easy win. Moving on. Josh Parisian versus Jamal. Oh, boy. Now I forget how to pronounce his name. Pogues? Ugh. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. I forget. I just watched these fights. I don't know why I didn't pay attention. And the fact that the other guy's name is Zach Pauga does not help. Anyway, Jamal and Josh. Let's just go with that. Both guys were landing back and forth. Jamal ends up getting the decision win here. Both guys were landing back and forth. Jamal ducked under a right hand and got the takedown early in the first round. Josh got up eventually. He landed a hard front kick right to the chin. Jamal got another takedown to end the round. He landed enough to keep the damage even, and he had way more control. So, in my opinion, I felt like he landed enough, like I said. So, the striking numbers were in favor of Parisian, 12-7, but Jamal had a ton of control time in that first round, nearly 3 minutes. And because of that, it put him over the top. But like I said, I felt like he did enough damage to keep it at least even in that category. Jamal got a takedown early in the second round. They got back up. Not a lot of damage in that. He started landing some damage. He landed more damage early, and then Parisian landed more down the stretch and pulled out ahead, in my opinion, in that second round. Now, the striking numbers were similar to the first round, 13-8 in favor of Parisian, but if you look at the control time, it wasn't as definitive for Jamal in the second round. He did have well over a minute of control time, but Parisian also controlled the octagon for a little bit in that round, and they spent more time on the feet. So Parisian did enough in that round to get that round, in my opinion. I'm repeating myself too. I don't know what is going on with my sinuses. Maybe it was sniffing glue all day, putting together. It's wood glue. You can actually see it behind me, out on the table back there, working on an art project. Ba, ba, ba. Jamal actually landed 2 lead hooks that looked really good as Josh moved forward. Both guys landing again, so Jamal ended up going for a takedown. Parisian was spinning, trying to get a Hail Mary finish, which I didn't understand. So as this fight kind of winded down, Jamal ends up outstriking him 18-12 as far as significant strikes in the last round here. But Parisian was spinning. He was throwing crazy shit, trying to throw these, like I said, a Hail Mary, looking for a Hail Mary finish. But if he had just thrown some straight shots, I felt like he could have got the damage in this last round. And I had him, I had it even going into the third round. So maybe he just was really worried that he didn't get that second round. Josh actually spent the last 20 seconds landing some damage in back control. It was really close, right? It was really close, but Jamal, I lean towards him, right? This last round, he did land more strikes, and I felt like, again, the damage was relatively even, but he was relatively even, but I felt like he was slightly out in front. And if you look at the scorecards here, Camijo and Tony Weeks gave it 30-27 in favor of Jamal, where Mike Bell gave that second round to Josh. So I don't always agree with Mike Bell, and just because he happened to agree with me here doesn't mean that I'm right necessarily. It's just the way I saw it. I thought, like I said, down the stretch, he did enough damage to put himself out in front in that second round, which is why I kind of didn't understand why he was just throwing crazy shit. He could have just kept it simple, stupid, and gone for regular down the pipe strikes and got a win, just landing more consistently in that last round. All right, William Knight versus Marcin Prachnio. This one was weird. Like, really, really weird. Oh, got the dream team here. Adelaide Bird and Saul D'Amato, huh? All right. Anyway, real quick. So I know William Knight gets real upset about people calling him out for being on testosterone or being on it in the past. Listen, dude, he is jacked out of control. Even with the best genetics in the world, people don't look like that. Okay. So even if he did have the best genetics in the world, he wouldn't have gyno from that. He has gynecomastia, which is the buildup of fatty tissue underneath the nipples. It's common. It's not common. It's actually extremely uncommon in men, period, let alone men who are not on exogenous hormones. But men who do take exogenous hormones can experience gynecomastia at an increased rate. It's commonly seen as a side effect of testosterone use, and William Knight has that. Plus, he has all of the other side effects, both positive, all the positive side effects, the increased muscle mass, the definition, all that stuff. And obviously, he has great genetics. You don't look like that because you're on testosterone, and he works out like a madman, obviously. So I know he gets called out for it a lot, and I know he gets really upset about it. I understand. I'm just calling it like I see it. And I understand that the UFC test, but saying that you're natural or saying that you passed the UFC drug testing, therefore you're not on stuff, doesn't hold water to me. It's just painfully obvious in his case, right? He's obviously got top tier genetics, top tier, and he's also on stuff. But that's besides the point. The other thing that they like to bring up is his lifting numbers, which are impressive compared to the general population. But when it comes to lifters, especially power lifters or people who look like him, who are that big, in an athletic sport where being strong and explosive, they were saying, oh, he squats 585 pounds. That's not that impressive to me. I understand for your average guy, that might sound impressive, but trust me, if you're not in the powerlifting scene, if you don't know anybody who's a powerlifter, if you've never been to a powerlifting gym, that's not an impressive number for a guy who's in the 220 range. Like, it's impressive that a guy can lift that like a human being can do that, but 585 is not that crazy. It's really not. And if you're going to try and call me out like, "Oh, you lift that." First of all, I do not weigh how much he weighs, okay? And I can deadlift, squat, and bench quite a bit of weight compared to the general population. But again, this is the general population is not one to be compared to when you're talking about athletic endeavors. I would compare him, and it's not that lifting that weight, like I said, is inherently not impressive. It's when they say it like, "Oh my god, I can't believe he does it." I can. It's not that crazy. For someone his size, I would hope that he could do that. Now, if he was a straight up bodybuilder and then they're saying he could also lift like that, then that's more impressive. But he's an athlete competing in an athletic sport that requires strength and mobility and a bunch of other things. God dang with my nose. What did I eat? That's causing such a crazy amount of phlegm. It's so bad. Anyway, uh, that was probably the most interesting thing that was happening because he threw like no strikes. It says he threw 10. I don't believe it. He landed 3 strikes in the first round, 1 strike in the second round, and 4 strikes in the third round. Again, I don't believe it. Prachnio landed a ton of leg kicks. Let's just look at leg kicks. 22 in the first round, 22 in the second round, and 19 in the third round. Just absolutely smoking that left lead leg of William Knight. Knight was just standing around getting kicked, and he was making faces. His legs were taking tons of damage. Knight was having issues with the lead leg, trying to hide it, but he didn't land anything. So obviously 10-9 first round to Marcin. I'm not going to say the scores. We all know who won that. He won every single round, but Knight was looking annoyed. He was making all these faces, but he was just getting picked apart. Knight wanted to pressure for half a second in the second round, but he couldn't because his leg was basically falling off. There were some head kicks landing. Knight was just shaking his head, wagging his finger, doing this number, which you can say, like, you can sit there and do all that stuff, but dude, at the end of the fight, he was sitting against the cage, right? Like, leaning there because he can't really stand up, and at the very end, he just, like, goes like this, like, "Man, I don't know." Like like you didn't just have 15 minutes to do something about it. What are you complaining about? I don't know. Like, I do know. You didn't do shit. That's what it was. So, I honestly, if you gave, Prachnio a 10-8 round, I'm okay with it. I understand that he wasn't near a finish, so therefore, if you want to give, sorry, I'm looking at scorecards from another thing. If you want to give him a 10-8 round just because, or you don't want to give him a 10-8 round because you feel like he didn't do enough damage, that's fine. I didn't give him a 10-8 round. I only had him up 30-27, but I'm not mad if you gave him a 10-8 round because Knight didn't land anything. That's like when a guy gets taken down in the first 10 seconds and spends the entire round on his back. Like, you can call that a 10-8 round, even if the guy didn't land a ton of damage, just because the other guy didn't throw up any offense. All right. Let's talk about the first fight on the main card here. Jim Miller versus Alexander Hernandez. Great fight. This, in my opinion, was fight of the night. Jeez. um, this is unfortunate. Alexander Hernandez did great. Okay, I thought he had an amazing fight. I thought Jim Miller had an amazing fight. All 3 rounds were exciting. All 3 rounds were relatively close. Second round probably being the most definitive, I would say. First round, Miller was really sitting down on his punches, trying to land hard. Miller was landing really, really well to the low leg, landing low leg kicks. He was avoiding some of the bigger shots that were coming back at him. Miller landed a big left head kick and followed up with a barrage. Hernandez landing like a good left hand and a shot to the body. Miller with the pressure, and Hernandez is not known for his cardio. I thought Miller was going to be able to keep the pressure on him and break Hernandez, but that did not happen going forward. Miller landed a kick to the nuts, which sucked. Miller landed more of the bigger shots, doing more damage in that first round. I would say I gave him that first round 10-9, and I will not hear it any other way. So I might be biased because I am a huge fan of Jim Miller. Any of these guys who make it later in their career like this and are tough as nails and still putting on an excellent show, I'm probably going to root for you. Jim Miller is not an exception. So, in my opinion, I feel that Jim Miller did do more damage, even though if you look at the striking numbers, Hernandez did land 32 to Jim Miller's 24 significant strikes. But go back and watch that one. Miller landed the bigger shots in that first round. Hernandez landed some good ones of his own, but more of the damage was in favor of Miller in that first round. I firmly believe that that is not just bias. The second round here was the most definitive, though, and it was for Hernandez. I will tell you that. Um, he landed the standing knee to the body as he was entering in quite a few times. It was a beautiful knee. I love that technique. Alex was putting the pressure on and landing. Miller was not slowing down, but he was just getting outlanded in the second round. His output did wane just a little bit here. Instead of attempting 70 strikes, he only attempted 50, so he did attempt less strikes. And Hernandez picked up the pace. Instead of attempting 66, he attempted 74, landing 2 more strikes in the second round, 34 to Jim Miller's 16. Miller was more stationary in the second round. He just, every time he was waiting for Hernandez to finish, he would throw a couple big shots and whiff and miss heavily, and Hernandez would exit out very stealthily, I would say, and just not take a ton of damage this round. He avoided most of the big shots that were coming back at him from Miller. So this one, come on. This wasn't a blowout round by any stretch of the imagination, but it was soundly Hernandez's round. So I had it 19-19 going into the third here. Miller landed a low kick again, something that was missing in the second round. If you look at the amount of leg kicks that he attempted in the second round, he only attempted 4. They were not as heavy as they were in the first round. He actually attempted 7 in the first round. He still only landed 4, but the attempts were there. And in the third round, he picked it back up again. I felt like that was really missing in the second round. Had he attempted that, maybe it could have changed the outcome of this fight. But judging by this third round, maybe not, because he did land more of them, 11 of 12, and he still, in my opinion, didn't win this last round. The middle part of the round, Alex was finding the range again, landing some volume shots. Miller landed he was pressuring again, and he landed a big left hand. Down the stretch, it really came down to who was finding their range and putting on the pressure. Hernandez was able to do that for the most part, but then Miller ended the round squeezing. He went on the back. He got to the back, and he was squeezing for a rear naked choke. Alex got out of it and landed some strikes. So he actually was the guy who landed more in this last round. He attempted even more, 94 significant strikes in this last round, which a lot of those were jabs, but that's okay. And he outlanded him 42-27. I gave that round to Hernandez. That was a good call. So if you look at the scorecards here, I do agree with Derek clearly, unfortunately. Eric Colon and Rick Winter, I don't agree with them, but I will give them that first round. That's fine. Derek clearly gave that first round to Jim Miller, and that's how I saw it. Like I said, I am biased, but I didn't see it that way. I saw it for Jim Miller in that first round. I will stand by my judgment based off of when I watched it live, but it wasn't so one sided that it's that first round's a robbery in any God in my opinion. All right. I'm going to call it there. So that's the main card. If you're looking for the prelims, it'll be in the next video. I'll put that out tomorrow morning. or maybe early afternoon. Thank you guys so much for stopping by. If you do like this stuff and you like this video, I hope you like it enough to subscribe to the channel so you know when the next video is coming out. Like I said, 2 or 3 videos every single week covering fights from Bellator, UFC, ONE FC, PFL, all kinds of stuff. I love this stuff. It's one of my favorite. It is my favorite sport, and I hope you guys enjoyed it enough to come back next time. Thank you guys. Have an amazing week, and I love y'all.